Welcome to Grow Groups at Litz Manor. I'm so glad that you decided to join us today. We've been talking about what it means to be new, what it means to be a new creation in Christ Jesus, and to understand and to comprehend from a biblical perspective what it means to be new. We have been looking at the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians chapter 5. This week we are on the spiritual gift, or the component of the gift of the Spirit, called faithfulness. Now, faithfulness seems to be one that perhaps would be just a foregone conclusion. It would be an obvious one. But faithfulness is one that I find that in our culture and in our world today, people struggle with. Faithfulness. What it means to be persistent, to be consistent, to be faithful, to endure, to persevere, regardless of what may come. So faithfulness is a huge thing, and it's something that really we, as we've talked about before, we don't really have within ourselves outside of the Spirit of God working in and through us. And there's some key things I just want to bring to mind of the message Sunday. If you watched it on Facebook Live, or if you were there, or if you were present, some things to remind you about faithfulness. Number one, faithfulness is a requirement for ministry. When we are called by God, when we are baptized into the family of God, we are challenged to be faithful in ministry. It's not an option. Ministry isn't a next step. Ministry is the Christian life. The loving one another, the caring for one another, the making disciples. That's just a basic component of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Then there's the understanding that faithfulness is a requirement for blessing. And so we oftentimes wonder, well, why are things happening? Why am I not being blessed? We need to always look at, it's not always the case, but we need to look at, are we being faithful with what we've given? Because see, sometimes we are so longing for a blessing to come that we sit down and we stop being faithful with what we've already been given. In a way of putting it, we long for the hand that someone else has instead of playing the hand that we've been dealt. And so we have to be faithful with what we've been given. And when we're faithful with what we've been given, then there's an opportunity for blessing. And the third part is in leadership. In particular, you cannot be an effective leader for Jesus unless you are faithful, unless the Spirit of God is developing faithfulness in you and you are surrendering to that move of the Spirit. And then we talked about 4 quick areas where we need to be faithful, where it's lived out. This is not an exhaustive list. These are 4 general areas where faithfulness is lived out and where it is seen. First of all, we are to be faithful to our family. The Bible says that we are to provide for our families. And provide is more than just financial, and provide is more than just a roof. We have to provide emotionally. We have to provide with support. We have to provide encouragement. We have to provide spiritually. We are to be the spiritual leaders of our home, in particular men. And it does not excuse women, doesn't mean women are any less, but men are supposed to be the priest and the spiritual leader of their home. In the absence of a man who is willing to take on and be faithful to the role that God has given us, then obviously we need the women to step up and lead in their home, but it's really a joint thing together. But I challenge men, because men become passive in this area. We are to be faithful to our family. We're to be faithful with our finances. That we are to leverage our finances, are not our treasure, our resources are not just for our enjoyment and our comfort. They are tools and resources that God gives us so that we can leverage them for the advancement of the kingdom. Because we have to always keep in perspective that we're not saving up for retirement in this life. Our reward is in heaven. Then 3, we have to be faithful to our community of faith. You see, what makes a great church is not the pastor nor the worship. What makes a great church are the people who are faithful to one another, who understand that their absence, their lack of involvement impacts others. And so the more we are involved and the more we are faithful to one another, the more mutual encouragement, the more vibrant the church becomes. And ultimately, we are to be faithful to our faith. We are to be faithful to our faith. What does that mean? It means that we are to endure. That means that we are to be consistent. That means that we are to abide in Christ. That means we are always to stand for what is right. So always do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. Just a very quick overview of faithfulness. I hope and encourage you to dig in with your Grow Group today and discover your next step in faithfulness. God bless you. Have a great